better at is taking like at least 2 photos of myself a year, because there are a lot of lost years where the only images of myself I have are like a grainy birthday photo or something that my parents took when I'm like 17, you know?
Yeah,
Um, and you can't really see how you change over the years that way.
that's true. And you do have that picture of the American flag shirt with the eagle on it at the movie theater
Mm,
from your birthday.
I think you brought that for me.
I did.
Actually, yeah.
Um,
That was really sweet.
and 6 pounds of bacon.
That sounds about accurate. I can't tell if that was the genesis or not. So I still have this thing where on my birthday I'll fry up a pound of bacon and eat it for breakfast. And I can't tell if I
Are you
just did that
serious?
I don't remember. I feel like maybe that was the first year I started it because you brought bacon, but I'm not sure. That's actually a
Yeah,
pretty good photo though, because I'm like shredded and I look happy and I have a nice haircut and I look
yeah,
patriotic.
yeah, you do.
I think I was dressed as a Viking for how I met my dragon. How to train your dragon. Mix it with how I met your mother. So I'm dressed up as a
How I trained your
Viking.
mother.
But so I dressed up like in like an old timey shirt with like a little lace thing and like a
Yeah.
burlap vest, and
Uh huh.
everybody asked me if I was dressed as Shrek or asked why I was dressed as Shrek, and I'm like, I'm a Viking or a peasant, I guess.
Dude, I know exactly what picture you're talking about because you had eyeliner on,
I
right?
probably just had that on anyway back in the era. No, I would. Maybe I did. I don't
Or
know.
was that?
I was JD Vancing it a little bit, just some natural eyeliner, you know. Um, I usually only wore eyeliner when I had black hair, though.
Oh my
I'm getting it all
god.
confused now.
I
A
forgot
little
about the
liner, a
black
little BB
hair.
cream, hide a
Yeah.
blemish here and there.
Oh my gosh.
Um, but anyway, since we're talking about hiding blemishes and other
Uh
things like
huh.
that, Bailey, I got a good question to ask you today.
All right.
Are you an organ donor?
Yes, I am.
Okay, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. So I am now as well, but I was always actually like pretty sketched out at the idea of being an organ donor. And for most of my teens and 20s, I actually opted out of it because I bought into the strange like notion, urban legend, whatever you call it, of that if you were dying in the hospital at the same time as somebody else, and you were an organ donor and they weren't, that the doctors were going to give up on saving you because they wanted to harvest your organs. And it makes
What?
sense to me. Yeah, yeah. A lot of people believe that if you're an organ donor and you're compromised, you're in an accident, that the doctors are like, well, we're gonna have to call this quick if we want to harvest the organs and just give up on saving you. It's basically not true, but it's
Yeah,
a
that sounds
popular belief.
awful. Yeah.
But I could understand what they mean. Like I've got very elastic, non-wrinkly skin. My kidneys must be good because I basically never drink water. I only drink Monster
What
and
the fuck
milk.
did you just do to your
Um,
neck?
yeah, it's a little bit of hyperelasticity. And
W-
all
You're just
you're
gonna
caught on
fucking
that.
do that and
Yeah,
then
it's
be like,
okay.
oh,
Yeah, but what I'm saying is
what
like I
else
could
can you do?
understand why. I can tell a freaking story if you give me 45 seconds. But
Okay,
all of
fine,
that,
fine.
yeah, all of that is to say, um, that I could understand why they would want my tender flesh. I could understand why they would want my body in a physical sense. And by physical, I mean that they would want my organs because people could put these things to good use,
Sure,
other than the
yeah.
fact that, I'm 4 million feet tall and I don't know if you could squeeze all of my organs into anybody, but, I digress. If you were going to donate some of your organs, what
Hmm.
would you be like most stoked about donating? Again, for me, I think it's my kidneys because they can just process massive amounts of Monster and never give anyone kidney stones. I kind of like the idea of like putting your gigantic owl eyes into my tiny little eye sockets. I feel like that could be pretty neat.
Okay, I've never thought of what body part would I be excited to give someone else.
Mm,
I've never thought of that. I don't know that I would be excited. Um, but um, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what my insides look like and what's tip top shape and what's not. So
Didn't
you're
you
kind of
recently
just
post a threads about this?
what?
The guy who said he was thinking about what
Oh
you'd look
my
like without your
god.
skin.
Yes, there was someone who I thought was a friend. I won't give out any names. I did block him on everything, but he did say that he often wondered what people would look like without their skin, and then was like, I wonder what you would look like without your skin. And I said, maybe you should see a therapist and talk to them about this because this is really weird and I'm really uncomfortable now. And then I blocked him.
I
Um,
understand.
yeah. However, I did go. We've talked about this on a different episode, but there used to be an exhibit called Body Worlds. I'm not sure if
Hmm.
it's still a thing anymore, but if you want to know what people look like without their skin, you are welcome to open an anatomy book or Google Body World
Yeah,
exhibit.
it's Googleable. Or a
Yeah,
Bing.
you can Google or Bing it. You
Yeah,
could Yahoo. You could. I don't. I don't know what else is out
hmm,
there. Firefox.
exactly.
So
All right. Get the point. You could do anything except ask a girl.
yeah,
Because,
please.
that is not a good pickup line.
Creepy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the thing I think I would be the most stoked about is if I like donated my brain to somebody who really needed one, and then I would wake up in their body and their family would be hugging me saying they're so happy I survived the procedure, and I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm just fuzzy on some details," and I'd have to figure out what I'm supposed to be like, try to emulate their family member who now has my brain.
Brain transplants are not a thing, are they?
Not
I'm gonna
yet,
guess
but
no.
we're gonna get
Currently,
into that a
no.
little bit later.
What would?
Um.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, but the reason I lead with all of that is because today I'm going to talk about organ and limb transplants. That's right, putting our body parts inside of other people. So
Okay.
there are lots of different types, so buckle up. And again, a lot of medical terminology here, so apologies if I don't
I'm ready.
pronounce it right. I'm not a doctor. So, allograft is a transplant of an organ or tissue between two genetically non-identical members of the same species, like you to me to you.
Okay.
Autograft is a transplant of tissue or organ from one part of the body to another in the same individual. So think of like getting a gum graft where they'd take it off the roof of your mouth and put it on your gum line.
Okay.
Vascularized composite allograft, or VCA, is a transplant of a limb or other complex tissue structure where blood vessels are preserved and reconnected. And xenograft is a transplant of organs or tissue from one species to another, which can be done. And that might sound really crazy, but most people have probably heard of getting like a bovine valve or something like that in your heart, where they can use pig or cow parts
Yeah.
to stitch you back together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so want to take a wild guess as to when the first successful organ transplant was? And I say successful because they've been attempting this forever, and it almost invariably resulted in death. Just what year?
This is gonna be hard, and I know I'm gonna answer wrong, and I'm gonna sound incredibly dumb. I'm gonna guess late 1800s, early 1900s.
Not too far off, actually. So the first successful large organ transplant was a kidney, and it was performed on December 23rd of 1954 at Peter Bent Brigham Hospital in Boston, or Brigham Hospital, yeah, in
Okay.
Boston, Massachusetts. So the transplant was performed by Dr. Joseph Murray on what is perhaps the most easy slow pitch softball case imaginable, and that would be two identical twin brothers, Richard and Ronald Herrick. So you
Oh,
can imagine that the anatomy, the blood type, and everything like that is probably going to match up
matchup.
pretty
Yeah.
well. Again, softball, you can see why they picked that as a,
Okay.
tent and why it was
Yeah.
successful. I can't really tell if this seems like early or late to me. I honestly feel like it's kind of late, like out into the 50s. This is well after the atomic bomb, so it's kind of wild that an organ transplant happened 10 years after that. But it's
Yeah,
also
they
worth,
were.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
No, they
it's worth
were
saying it's complex though. It's an organ.
right. I mean, and I'm sure there are experiments that we don't know about that were done. I mean, do you
Yeah,
know the main reason for the invention of the chainsaw?
I assume pruning bushes and trees.
It was uh I'm going to fact check
Yeah,
myself for a
fact check it
moment.
real quick so we could chop it out if not.
They were used as medical tools to aid in childbirth, to widen the
Um,
pelvis
what?
and removing diseased bones
What?
in the late 18th century. So it's not the same kind of chainsaw that we envision today, but it is like
How can that
medieval
be better
looking.
than a knife? Ew, that's looks scarier than the ones today. What the
Yeah,
heck?
it's got a hand crank on it and
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
So we're gonna toss this up on the screen if you're watching on Spotify or YouTube and have video. I
Yeah.
guess, but well, that's some nightmare fuel. I like that they put it by this weird diagram breakdown. Ugh,
Yeah.
that guy looks like a good doctor though. He looks really nerdy. That's who I want operating on me next time I'm delivering a baby and need chainsawed through the
He's
pelvis.
probably dead now.
Oh, he might be. He might be. I don't know. He does look healthy. All right. So, um, slightly easier operations in a similar vein, no pun intended, would be a blood transfusion. It also doesn't go back that far. So in 1818, James Blundell, a British obstetrician, performed the first successful transfusion of human blood to a patient for postpartum hemorrhage.
Oh.
So yeah, now this was a bit of a lucky one as well, mostly because blood types weren't even discovered until the year 1900. So up until that point, I guess you just like prayed for a match because if you get the wrong
Yeah.
blood type siphoned into your veins, obviously your immune system attacks it. So,
Right.
I mean, most
And then you're
people have,
basically dying double time.
yeah, exactly. It
Yeah.
probably speeds up the process instead of
Right.
helping.
But we're not
Imagine
doctors.
trying to figure out why sometimes the transfusion helps and sometimes the people just die. And you could just go a safer route, like put a couple leeches on them, you know?
Yeah. I wonder if they were like thinking like, "Oh, this woman needs if she's hemorrhaging, she needs blood from a woman
Mm,
or something." I don't know.
yeah, it could be. And I mean, they probably, they figured out the like and like is more likely to work out
Mhm.
long time ago, but, they wouldn't get the details of that down until much later. And people would even win a Nobel Prize for it, though. So that's pretty cool. But now, other early examples include skin grafts, of which there's like some dubious sources suggesting that even ancient Egypt and India had mixed success with this. Again,
What?
they didn't, yeah, like there's some evidence of skin grafting and stuff, especially from your own body going back a couple thousand years. Again, it's
That's
hard to
wild.
prove like definitively how well it worked, if it worked at all, but they at least
Yeah.
had the idea down.
Hmm.
All right. So after 1954, science started progressing steadily, and the impossible became possible. So only a little over a decade later, in 1967, the first successful heart transplant took place, in which
Whoa.
Louis Washkansky, I guess, it's a tough name. Sorry, Louis. A 53-year-old suffering from a serious heart disease received a donor heart from Denise Darville, who was a 25-year-old organ donor who tragically passed away in a car accident. Now,
Mm.
you might think that organs would be easier something than like, a hand or a foot, but it's
Mhm.
actually the opposite. Even a heart, which, is having to constantly pump your blood, is significantly easier to install than a hand. Would
Is
you have
that
guessed
because
that?
of I mean, maybe because of all the nerves?
Right on the money, right on the money. I had
Yeah.
no idea until I started looking this up. I assumed that like reattaching a hand or something like that would be much easier than an organ. But it's not. So,
let's take a moment to think about this, Ethan.
mhm,
You have so many nerve endings in your fingers,
I sure do, yeah.
like your toes. At least I do. But also your bones. And I'm also curious because like now we have anti-rejection meds that people have to take when they get
Sure.
transplants. Because I had a friend in junior high. Her name was Chelsea. She had a double lung transplant because she had cystic
In
fibrosis.
junior high? Oh my
In junior
gosh.
high, she was in like we were in 6th grade, I think. And it was creepy too. I don't mean like creepy, but
No, I
like
get what you mean.
mind blowing because we would message each other on MSN Messenger. And when she was in the hospital after the surgery, she had asked one of the nurses to take pictures, and she sent me pictures of the surgery, like whole chest wide open.
Oh my gosh.
I saw that when I was like, I don't know, 6th grade. How old are you? Like 10,
Uh-huh.
9 or 10? um
Right. I was
but
like
I was
16, but
fascinated by it. But she took anti-rejection medication to prevent the lungs, like from her body rejecting the lungs.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a
So
pattern across this, but even if you are a good match, it's regular to have to take anti-rejection meds for the rest of your life,
yeah,
especially for, tissues that aren't going to just slowly replace over time. And um
right.
so yeah, that is the case. But, it's better than
Huh.
not having lungs, I guess.
I mean, I guess, but I'm just thinking about how that transplant surgery would have gone in the what you said 54, 50.
Yeah, 54 was the first kidney transplant. I don't have any
Yeah.
specific numbers on the first lung transplants, but, heart then
Yeah.
was 67. So 50s,
Okay.
60s, 70s is where they're first really getting organ
Okay.
transplants down.
Gotcha.
And I
Yeah.
mean, technically,
Cool.
skin is an organ as well, but,
It's our
it's a little
largest
different.
organ.
It
Yeah.
is for some of us who don't have giant brains like you and me. Um, so now organs like the heart are involuntary, meaning they are controlled by the autonomic nervous system with no particular deliberate effort. So you can breathe a bunch if you want to. If you get
Right.
knocked out by a baseball bat or something like that to the back of the head at a reasonable speed that doesn't kill you instantly or put you into a coma, your lungs are just going to keep working. When you're asleep,
Right.
your lungs are working. Contrary to popular belief, you don't stop breathing while you sleep, which is why humans can't sleep underwater for extended amounts of time. Um,
Sleeping underwater?
yeah, for sure, for sure.
What
So
the hell?
I'm saying you can't sleep underwater because you actually sleep when you breathe. What part of this are you not understanding? I'm
Oh,
sorry, you breathe when you
okay.
sleep. Flip it,
You
reverse it,
breathe when you sleep
pop
unless you have
it.
sleep apnea or a sleep disorder. Ethan,
Yeah,
don't
that's
be
true. That's
misleading
true.
people.
And we're not going to discriminate against our sleep apnea friends. You're,
No.
as
I,
Veggie
you
Tales
know,
say, God made you special and he loves you very much.
yeah.
Isn't that what they used to say?
I have no idea. Why is
Not a
it
big
that
Veggie Tales fan over here.
sleep apnea if you yeah, that's wild.
Mm-hmm. So
I'm so tired. I'm sorry.
voluntary systems like the hand require complex networks of nerves, just as you said, muscles, bones. Most organs, like the heart, don't really have a whole lot of bones in them if they're in good health.
You're
Blood
you're
vessels,
hard.
yeah, tendons, ligaments, and again, hands are actually more prone to rejection than things like kidneys and hearts, which is also pretty wild.
Hmm.
There were multiple attempts at transplanting limbs, but the first successful project wasn't until 1998 in France. I know. When a team of surgeons collaborated to attach a donor hand to a man who had lost his hand 15 years earlier. So Stumpy
Oh,
had basically grown accustomed to not
Stumpy.
have. Okay, you're gonna make fun of his name now.
His
Stumpy
name is not
basically.
Stumpy.
You're right. You're right. So anyway, Howard Stump lost his hand in an.
You're making up
I'm
his
kidding. I'm
name.
kidding. Yeah, that's not his name.
Okay.
Okay. So, this field is far from perfected. The more tissue you're moving, the more complicated it gets. Duh. People regularly end up having to take anti-rejection meds for their entire life. Again, as you said, with the lung situation. And while there's no anti-rejection meds to help you with your dismal dating app situation, they can help you hang on to your donor limbs and organs. So,
Okay.
the first successful major limb transplant was perhaps the double arm transplant performed on Felix Grittarson. I'm going to go with Grittarson for a name, who was an electrician from Iceland. He suffered severe burns and had to have both arms and a portion of his shoulders carved out and amputated after an electrical accident.
God.
Yeah. So that was in 1998. Again, it's just, workplace risk. I guess I'm trying to think, like, working at Sephora, that'd be like if you put on a foundation that was just completely the wrong color or something like that. Disasters can happen at work, and that's why you have insurance.
Dude, we do all sorts of stuff. I mean, we're lifting like 50-pound boxes, like new shelf displays. They send all in one piece most of the time, and they're 50 pounds. So it's
I
like
guess
a
you could
team
also,
lift.
I'm making a joke, you could also be like allergic to something and die. So,
Yeah.
side note, I don't want to depart too much. Did you see the video? It's been going around about how big the needle in an EpiPen actually is.
No.
I always assumed it was like a bee stinger. It's like a freaking giant needle, which is why you have to stab it in the thigh.
Throw up.
Yeah. Okay.
I can't do needles.
Since that's too gross, let's talk back about cutting limbs off and sewing them onto other people. Since that doesn't bother you.
They could probably make the needle half the length and charge half the price.
I think you just solved it right there.
We need to start a petition.
Yeah, the petition to Big Epi for making the needles smaller to save on cost. All right, so I'm gonna shoot you an image real quick on what it looked like when these puppies got sewed on. So let me open up my Discord
is it bloody
here?
Is this? Do I get a trigger
send that
warning,
to you?
Or? All right.
So here's an image of him kind of like on the operating table right after it happened. And then there's a before and after that shows like his arms were just totally and fully gone.
My internet crapped, I think.
Oh, yeah. You're back.
Okay.
We're still rolling. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So he didn't have even a little bit of arm left. He was basically all torso. This is not the weight loss regimen I would recommend for anybody losing both your arms.
Oh, no, Ethan.
And while his body weight did significantly go down after having his arms amputated, he was left without arms and couldn't type, puff on a cigarette, like anything like that.
You couldn't give anybody a hug.
He really couldn't. He could receive a hug. He could not give one. So
this is wild,
isn't it?
So there's I have to tell myself this is fake, but it really does, like, that's a ton of stitches and everything. I wonder do you know how long it took for them to do that?
So these surgeries, depending on the complexity, can take anywhere from like 7 to 20 hours, and sometimes they try to get them all done in one go, and sometimes it just can't be done. I do know one later on involved, I believe it was somewhere around 15 hours. We'll get to this girl later, but it took up to about 20 surgeons working in concert just to get it done. So these are big operations, like frequently costing, hundreds of thousands of dollars just because of the amount of talent and time you're putting into it.
I also Where was this guy? You said France.
This guy was Ireland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think the
Um,
surgeries are often performed in France at that specific hospital, but
okay.
surgery performed in France, but
So
this guy was Irish.
I was gonna say here in America, I don't see
Oh, I'm sorry.
heart
He's from Iceland. I'm so sorry,
Iceland.
Iceland. I don't try
Oh,
and do that
okay.
to you, brother.
No. In America, I don't foresee any health insurance covering an arm transplant because some of them don't even want to cover prosthetic limbs for
Mm-hmm.
people.
Oh,
I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't know that, but it's kind of
Yeah.
wild. I do know they are very expensive. Like you can be in
Yeah.
tens of thousands of dollars for,
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Just for
probably more than that, I would
one.
imagine, for like a complex robotics one, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
rough stuff. And I mean, this
Yeah.
isn't a pre-existing condition because he was actually born with arms, but he lost them in a work-related accident. So maybe he could get it covered. I don't know.
I
Moving
don't
on,
know.
now that you see it, 18 months post-op, and Felix here can actually, he can lift light objects. He can hold hands. He can use a broom. He can hug. I know you were asking about that. He's
Yep.
capable of shaking hands, showering, and dressing himself with it, which is a big one. And one of his favorites, he can walk his dog,
Oh, I thought you were gonna say
holding the
jack
leash.
off.
um, I mean, if he can hold a broom, then I'm gonna freaking quit this podcast. That took me. I accidentally closed my window because I freaked out so much when you said that. So,
I mean, that
now,
would kind of suck though, but yeah.
can you
Go
imagine?
on.
Just yeah. So now that Felix here has gotten his confidence back,
Yeah.
he did announce his candidacy.
I wonder why that was.
He's really feeling himself. he has announced his candidacy in the Icelandic presidential election starting in 2024.
Whoa!
So he'll be
I'll vote for him.
running for well, you probably
Wait, that was
won't.
last year.
Yeah, I think he's still rolling for it moving forward. So I think he's got a good now he's got a handle on the situations over there for sure.
What was his name?
His name is Felix. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this Gretarson or Gretarsson. It's Gretarson. Sounds
All right, well,
Icelandic.
let's give Felix a hand.
Yeah. Well, somebody already done gave him two. So
In all seriousness,
Yeah.
like I'm glad that ended up working out. I cannot even imagine what it would have been like to, lose both of your arms.
Yeah, and it's
Like-
wild. And it's worth saying that these people who are receiving these, there is a huge amount of bravery that goes with this because very often the complications aren't as easy as just taking the rejected limb off. You are
Right.
receiving donor tissue, but you're also contributing to some very cutting edge and very risky science. So
Right.
there's, a reason why a lot of people don't pursue looking into having a limb graft. Like, it's pretty brutal.
Right. Yeah.
So now, there is some weird stuff that's been known to happen after transplants. So I messaged you about this earlier this week because I was so freaked out while I was doing my research. And this might be a couple weeks ago now. But one of the strangest is the fact that transplanted limbs and tissues tend to change color to match the rest of the recipient's body, especially their skin color. So the most popular case is that of, again, sorry on the name, this is an Indian name, but Shreya Siddhanagauda.
Okay.
I'm going with that.
Okay.
um, who received a double hand transplant in 2017. Yeah. So Shreya was injured in a bus accident that left her nearly armless, among a bunch of other
Oh,
injuries she sustained. Um, so I'm going to drop you a
oh,
photo
a
right here in
picture?
Discord again, so you can kind of see. Again, this isn't one of like the roughest ones right here. It just shows her arm situation that
Oh,
fully
yeah.
above the elbows.
Wow.
Um, she was just armless.
Yeah.
Uh, so Shreya was again injured in a bus accident, and she wrote a very, very neat essay, which I'm going to link in the show notes about the entire experience from her injury all the way through the recovery of the transplant.
Oh, wow.
Um, but I won't recount the entire thing. But she was incredibly tough. So she wrote that after losing her arms, she felt helpless, of course, because like she even wrote she couldn't even like clean herself after using the restroom. But within a
Yeah.
few days of losing her arms, she already set to continuing her life by training herself how to type on her cell phone using her toes. So even yeah, just
Whoa.
like a few days after the incident, she was already able to like start messaging her friends, and that like get up and go attitude was part of the reason that she was a candidate for the surgery. She started meeting with some of the surgeons basically right after the accident. And she was only out of commission for about a year total before she went under the knife to get a brand new pair of donor arms from
Wow.
a man. So,
Oh.
yeah, that's right. She received a set of male forearms. So I'm going to drop another image in right here. But her donor um, was a young man who passed away after being in a coma for a while, and he was quite a bit bigger than her. So right after she got her surgery, she had a set of just like very strong, big, burly, masculine arms.
Arms.
And this one is even quite a bit after the recovery right there. So they've
Yeah.
started kind of changing a bit, but
Her.
you can see a
Yeah.
line where the skin tone is kind of
Different.
different.
Yeah.
Um, but
Wow.
yeah, so
I
yeah,
mean,
let's
it's not like there's like a, like go shopping for cars, but for body parts.
right.
Like,
And
those have been used. They're about 10,000 miles. You should probably start worrying about oil, shit. What, you know what I mean?
right,
Like,
100%. And people are
yeah.
actually less likely. I read especially in India, but when you're having funerals and things, you eyes are, sewn shut or pinned shut. We've learned a lot about this talking to our mortician friend Emily. Um,
Yeah.
but you can't tell if somebody's donated a kidney. You can tell if they don't have arms. So
Yeah.
again, I tried to find some information. There wasn't a lot of information on the young man who had donated basically his entire body to those in need after he passed.
Oh, wow.
But she wrote about him a little bit in the article, especially that at that time, 6 people had received his organs and limbs, and he'd saved multiple lives after he had
Wow.
passed. So she did have a lot of appreciation for that. Um,
I wonder too if like because a lot of times someone who has a traumatic experience like the accident that she was in, it already gives you a different perspective on life, and then
mhm,
to be given another chance and having someone else's freaking hands, like half of their arms from the elbow
sure.
down, would it like I to for me personally, that would make me appreciate being able to use them twice as much. I mean,
Yeah.
cuz I don't think about, "Oh, I'm thirsty. I'm going to pick up my cup and take a drink right now." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
I mean, it's
just not
voluntary, but it is automatic.
right.
Like the way
Right.
you behave and interact with your world is going to be completely different.
Right.
And again, part of again her enthusiasm towards being solution oriented with it is why they figured she was worth taking a risk on such a big surgery like this.
Wow.
So I'm going to drop another photo right here that's the most popular one. I tried to find one that was more accurate. People Photoshop these a lot to make it
Oh,
seem
I'm
more
sure.
extreme, but I believe they were both from India, but the donor had a very, very dark skin tone at the time of the
Oh.
donation, and she had kind of much more fair skin tone. But even a few months after the surgery, the pigmentation started completely changing to match the rest of her body. Um, and then
Whoa.
even just in this one, a few months, you can see the fingers are starting to grow a little thinner, and the whole frame is becoming a little bit more feminine. So again,
Whoa.
and the big yeah, so it's pretty neat. It's pretty neat. So, but as you can see
That's
in these
wild.
photos, her donor arms came from someone much bigger than her, much darker skin tone, and it totally changed colors as it went on. In addition to that, um, check out. I'm going to show you just one more here. I don't want to
Sure.
drop too many million images
No,
right
I don't
here.
mind.
But
This
this
is
is, yeah, this is
interesting
what she
AF.
looked like a couple years after. You can see there's still a line, but other
Mm-hmm.
than like right over the elbow, you almost can't tell that there was even a
Yeah.
transplant. Like it's totally fallen back into her color and proportions.
Wow.
Um, so her surgery was a success, and she's able to do super fine motor tasks, including handwriting thank you letters to all of her surgeons who performed the surgery. Yeah, and a
Whoa.
lot of that does come with being young and being willing to retrain yourself at the nerve level and everything, and it takes a
Yeah.
lot of physical therapy and practice.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
why did her hands completely change colors? And that's not a quiz. I'm just phrasing this. There are
Yeah.
multiple thoughts, but the general consensus is that melanocyte stimulating hormone, which is produced by the pituitary gland, hypothalamus, and skin cells, and plays a key role in stimulating melanocytes in the skin, which determines skin pigmentation, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Naturally, over time, your body will make some adjustments at the chemical level. And I'm not a biologist. I'm sure this is 100% correct. So go ahead and quote me on it. But as that's circulating from your brain and everything, it's sending the signal on how active should the melanin producing um, cells be in your skin. So
Yeah.
obviously, if skin is more or less a static concept and your brain's telling your body how dark to make it, with different hormones and things that it's excreting, then it's naturally going to bridge over time. The other thing, of course, is like on the proportions, they're going to go to your lifestyle as well. So if she tends to, let's say, not be super involved in the gym or playing cricket or anything like that that would require great big muscles. Anybody knows if you spend a lot of time in the gym and then take a couple of years off, ooh, what happens to the
Yeah.
muscles? They go away.
Well, so it's interesting because my first guess was, okay, what if you get arms from like a really hairy guy?
Sure.
Well, like if that were to happen to me, my body would not be producing as much testosterone, so it would be producing more uh estrogen.
You are
So I wouldn't have.
100% on the money. Yes.
But it's also interesting that there's also a hormone for melanin
Yeah, just how it
or lack
stimulates
of.
stimulates
Yeah.
the melanocytes in the
Huh.
skin. And I
I
guess
had
that
no
does
idea.
start in the brain. I didn't know that either.
I do have a question though.
Sure.
What if the guy who she got these arms from, okay, had been arrested
I'm scared to let you ask any
and he
questions
was
at this point
and he
after
was
what you did to Felix.
and he was fingerprinted and then she commits a crime but his fingerprints are at the crime scene and then they're looking for this guy
I
but they
think
find out he was pronounced dead and
I
then
think
they're
you
like
just wrote your next movie script that you got from the pod.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
and I mean this nice kid Shreya, she really strikes me as the murderer type, so
Yeah,
I'm
I
sure we'll
don't.
see that.
It's all hypothetical, but it's all just
Hmm.
like a what if. Like, it's just very interesting
Oh, for sure,
to
for sure.
ponder.
To ponder, yes. Um, so all of this probably has you wondering why cannibalism is illegal when sewing body parts
What?
onto yourself is perfectly fine and even celebrated. But in truth, Idaho is actually the only state in the US with a specific law against cannibalism. So obviously it's still hard to
Wait,
obtain
wait a
human remains
minute.
to consume. What?
Can't that is in no way related to a transplant,
What? Oh, I was just
dude.
saying that in case you were wondering. I figured you were wondering how come you can't be a
Okay.
cannibal, but they will just give you a set of arms if you want to sew them onto your body. What do you think's weirder, eating an arm or sewing it onto yourself at an objective level? I'm just outlining it, okay?
I
In
would
case
say
you were
eating it for
curious.
sure.
Okay, sure.
Anybody who doesn't say cannibalism is wrong
Probably doesn't live in
is
Idaho, which is the only
probably
state with a law against it. Again, I
nuh-uh.
just figure out, yeah, okay, so again, Idaho is, I believe, the only state with a specific law against cannibalism. Almost all other cases are going to have to be shoehorned under like the mishandling a corpse, and like other
Oh,
federal
yeah,
laws
yeah.
like that. There's not really a lot of provision for not consuming human flesh. So the biggest barrier with that actually comes from ethically obtaining the human remains to consume. So just as
Right.
there's like typically long wait lists for organs and tissue transplants, there's going to be super long wait lists for human remains fit for
Mhm.
cannibalism. So still,
Yeah.
um, given
Yeah,
that,
what are
given,
your sources?
given
Where
that
are you getting this information?
Jugal.com, still,
Juggle.
yeah. Would you consider getting a transplant or giving a transplant or partaking in ethical cannibalism? Has any of this discussion made you more enthusiastic about being an organ donor, seeing like how much good it can do in the world? For me, it really has. Like, I'm not nervous about it at all. I read about all the good that can come out of donating your organs, and I'm like, it's kind of beautiful to think that you could live on through the lives of other people after you've passed.
Yeah. I
Yeah, to what?
not really excited about the whole cannibalism part. I hope nobody eats
Oh,
my dead body when I
sure.
die,
Yes, yes.
but um I do like the idea of being an organ donor and you know, helping somebody else out. I know a woman who's had a cornea transplant,
Mm,
you know?
that's amazing. Yeah, that I didn't put in. There are some
She's
really
not
neat.
allergic to corn.
Okay. No, there's some really cool things with that, but it got very,
Yeah.
very not surprisingly, very complicated, and I just kind of cut those for the sake of time. And I didn't want to get into
Yeah.
any of the super grim stuff. Like you can find videos of like the research that went into this. Some of it's very, very, very
Yeah, how many
dark.
failed
Um,
attempts happened before there was a success?
yeah,
You know
no,
what I
there's
mean? Yeah.
unfortunately both ethical experimentation and decidedly non-ethical experimentation that's got just literally stuff out of like human centipede level horror movie type stuff that
Stop.
I'm
That's one movie I will not watch.
I
I
wouldn't
cannot
recommend
do
it.
it.
Yeah. But like it's gruesome. And it always, you can get into the philosophical discussions on doing horrible things in the name of good, but we are not going to talk about those today. We're going to draw the line at cannibalism before we get to anything creepy.
Okay. You know, I'm here for it. If yeah, cannibalism, bad. If you lose
I'm going
your
to cut that out.
limbs,
I'm here for it. Cannibalism.
I'm editing this episode.
Oh, okay. You're safe then. Right. You're probably going to
Yeah.
cut this up to make it sound like I'm the wild one just talking about cannibalism casually.
Yeah. Every single word is just going to be
Cannibalism.
cannibalism. Yeah. Just
I
like chopped
like
up.
eating humans.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, the TikTok video of you it has 20,000 views now.
Woo!
Mm-hmm.
So my top 10 biggest TikToks. I didn't even have to post it. That's the best. Again, behind the curtains, I don't really use social media much. Bailey manages like all of that and does a super duper awesome job putting the clips together. So huge thanks with that. Just got the analytics report, and it sounds like our TikTok has 20,000 views. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And, if you're watching us on Spotify or YouTube, you can also find us on Instagram and TikTok, Niche Knowledge and Nonsense, or our handle most of the time is just going to be NKNPod.
Easier to spell.
You can find us there. It's way short and sweet. Ethan, do you have anything else that you want to mention about your episode?
Not really. I'm just really interested in what Cherry Crush sounds like. So it'd be really cool if that started like fading in right now. So
yeah, I'll play it right now.
I'll figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
If you made it this far into the episode, I just wanted to say thank you for listening all the way through. I hope you learned something new, and if you enjoyed your listen, please leave us a review wherever you're listening. You can also send us an email at nicheknowledgeandnonsense@gmail.com. Special thanks go out to Eric Sparrow for letting us use the song Cherry Crush for the intro and outro on our episodes, and also for the support we've received from friends and family. Thank you guys, and make sure to look for a new episode every 2 weeks.